Did the apostles write this? Unmasking the truth behind the Didascalia Apostolorum. Key points. The Didascalia Apostolorum, compiled likely in the 3rd century in Syria, emphasizes church hierarchy with detailed roles for bishops, deacons, and deaconesses. It seems likely the text, attributed to the apostles but pseudepigraphical, was written by an unknown bishop, possibly of Jewish descent, focusing on practical guidance. The evidence leans toward it providing instructions for selection and duties, with bishops as authoritative figures, deacons as mediators, and deaconesses for women's ministry. However, some views, like on women, are debated. There is controversy over its historical interpretation, some accepting its insights, while others questioning its authority due to its non-canonical status. The Didascalia Apostolorum is an early Christian text that outlines the church hierarchy, detailing the roles of bishops, deacons, and deaconesses. It's not part of the Bible but offers a window into how early Christians organized their communities, particularly in 3 RD century Syria. This study, written from an Orthodox perspective, explores its historical context, content, and relevance to our faith today. Bishops, leaders, and shepherds. Bishops are seen as the mouth of God, with strict qualifications like being at least 50, blameless, and skilled in Scripture. They teach, judge with mercy, and ensure church order, preferring celibacy but not requiring it. Their role reflects the Orthodox understanding of bishops as successors of the apostles, guiding the church with divine authority. Deacons, servants, and mediators. Deacons mediate between the laity and bishops, visiting the needy and maintaining order during services. They must align with bishops and be diligent in ministry, embodying the spirit of service seen in figures like Saint Stephen, the first martyr. Deaconesses, ministers to women. Deaconesses minister to women, especially in baptism and visiting the sick, but face restrictions like not instructing doctrine. This has sparked debate on their roles in early Christianity, with ongoing discussions about women's ministry and historical practices in modern orthodoxy. Historical context and legacy. Written around the 3rd century in Syria, it influenced later texts like the Apostolic constitutions, but was never widely popular. It reflects early church practices amid theological tensions. Orthodoxy is valued as a historical document, not a doctrinal authority, reminding us of our apostolic roots. Detailed analysis, Didascalia Apostolorum, church hierarchy. The Didascalia Apostolorum, or simply Didascalia, is an early Christian legal treatise in the genre of church orders. It provides a comprehensive insight into the ecclesiastical structure, particularly the church hierarchy of the 3rd century, likely in northern Syria. This study, written from an Orthodox perspective by far name, explores its emphasis on the roles of bishops, deacons, and deaconesses, delving into its origins, content, historical context, and reception, drawing on historical and scholarly sources. In the rich tapestry of Orthodox tradition, we often look to the early church for guidance on living out our faith. The Didascalia Apostolorum is one such treasure, though not part of the canonical scriptures, offering valuable insights into the organization and life of the early Christian community, particularly in Syria during the 3rd century. This document, though pseudepigraphical, meaning it was written under the names of the apostles but composed later, provides a window into how our forebears in the faith structured their communities, appointed leaders, and cared for their members. As Orthodox Christians, we hold fast to the apostolic tradition, and texts like the Didascalia help us understand how that tradition took shape in the early centuries. Historical context. This text emerged during a period of theological and ecclesiastical development in the 3rd century, likely in northern Syria, possibly near Antioch, a city with deep roots in early Christianity. As it was here that the disciples were first called Christians, Acts 11:26. Compiled between 200 and 250 AD, it reflects a time when the church was still defining its practices and hierarchies, integrating converts from paganism and navigating theological tensions, including those with Judaism. The text's engagement with Jewish traditions and anti-Judaic sentiments highlights the complex relationship between early Christians and Jews during this period, particularly in its view of post-Golden Calf Jewish law as punishment, abrogated by Jesus' death. Origins and authorship. The 12 apostles write the Didascalia Apostolorum at the time of the Council of Jerusalem. Still, scholars agree it is a later composition, with most estimates suggesting the 3rd century. Based on its language and theological concerns, the provenance is usually regarded as northern Syria, possibly near Antioch. The author is unknown, but is believed to have been a bishop, given the text's emphasis on instructing bishops and other church officials. Research suggests the author was likely of Jewish descent, as evidenced by the text's engagement with Jewish Christian sources, and had considerable medical knowledge but lacked special theological training, relying heavily on scripture and earlier texts like the Didache, Hermas, Irenaeus, the Gospel of Peter, and the Acts of Paul. Manuscript tradition and translations. The original text was written in Greek, but only fragments of the Greek version survive. The most complete versions are in Syriac, with numerous manuscripts dating from the 7th to the 20th centuries, including a 9th century Syriac papyrus. There are also partial Latin translations from the 4th century, though incomplete, and Arabic and Ethiopic versions. The Didascalia is the primary source for the first 6 books of the Apostolic Constitutions, a 4th century text, which expanded and revised its content, highlighting its influence on later ecclesiastical literature. Historical significance and reception. The Didascalia Apostolorum holds significant historical value as a window into early Christian practices and beliefs, particularly in Syria. Its reception in Christian tradition has been mixed. It was used by the Audiani, a Syrian sect, and was known to Epiphanius of Salamis, who believed it to be apostolic. It was incorporated into the Apostolic Constitutions in the 4th century and quoted in later works like Pseudo-Chrysostom's Opus Imperfectum in Mattheum. Its juridical elements, such as the canons and decrees, are seen as an early forerunner of canon law collections, influencing the development of church governance. However, the text never had great vogue and was largely superseded by the Apostolic Constitutions, reflecting its regional rather than universal acceptance. The text's emphasis on church hierarchy, particularly the detailed roles of bishops, deacons, and deaconesses, provides insights into the organizational structure of early Christian communities, with its restrictive views on women's roles and anti-Judaic sentiments being subjects of scholarly debate. Comparison with other early Christian texts. The Didascalia Apostolorum draws heavily from earlier works. Didache, an early 2nd century text that influences its structure and content, particularly in liturgical and moral teachings. Hermas, Irenaeus, Gospel of Peter, Acts of Paul. These are sources for theological and narrative elements synthesizing earlier traditions. It can be seen as an attempt to adapt and synthesize these earlier texts for a 3 RD century audience, incorporating additional material to meet contemporary needs, particularly in addressing heresies and church order. Modern scholarship. Modern scholars have provided valuable insights into the Didascalia Apostolorum. Authorship and sources. The text is a compilation from various sources, with the author likely of Jewish descent and a bishop. Date and provenance. Generally dated to 250 AD, its Syrian origin is supported by its use of Syriac sources and connections to local traditions. The Didascalia Apostolorum is a complex and multifaceted text that offers a detailed glimpse into the early Christian church hierarchy, emphasizing the roles of bishops, deacons, and deaconesses. Compiled in the 3rd century from earlier sources, it reflects its time's theological and liturgical developments. While never accepted as canonical, it has influenced later Christian traditions, particularly through the Apostolic Constitutions, and remains a valuable resource for scholars studying early Christianity. Its detailed instructions for selection and duties, alongside its restrictive views on women and anti-Judaic rhetoric, underscore the importance of discerning its historical context, yet its historical significance endures.